Hi, this is Ross Payton here with Roleplay and Public Radio, and this is episode 32, Show and Tell, Maps and Minis. And, of course, with me, as always, is Mr. Thomas Church.
Yeah, Ross, I gotta say, just looking across here, watching your mouth enunciate those words to the point that it's comical, that's what gets me up in the morning.
We're in radio. Well, not radio, but podcasting. It's audio, Tom, you know.
I'm trying to method act here, okay?
I see how it is. So anyways, this episode we're going to be talking about all of using maps, miniatures, handouts, props, all those little gimmicks that can make a game shine.
Or, make it crap.
Yeah, well... Usually, if the game's crap, it's not.
Or it can make a good game even.
It can be distracting.
Well, it can make a good game great, or it can make a bad game pretentious.
There you go. Nice going there, Tom.
I try.
Of course, we have a couple things to talk about first. Of course, is the New World Primer. It should be out Wednesday, May 20th, maybe the 21st at the latest.
But we're going to try the 20th, because that's the date we said.
Yeah, Tom has written quite a bit of it. Or not, well, he's written a lot.
About 5,700 words.
It's going to be over 20,000 words when it's all said and done.
Hey, when we hook you people up, we make sure we hook you up with a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we got to be above and beyond. We kind of went. Now that I'm actually revising, rewriting, doing all this, it's like, wow, we really we should ask for more money.
That's how we roll, man.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, our inability to set the right amount of work for the right amount of money is your game.
Yeah, I admit I wrote I was writing the adventure hooks for it. I wanted to have 10, hoped to have about 1,000, 1,500 words. It got a little bigger.
Yeah. So you could say that again. So
I'm not, though.
Yeah. Well, we also have some artists.
Yes, we do.
We do have 3 artists or 4 artists actually who are contributing maps, art of the Gripply, art of the Ravenmocker monster, and all kinds of great stuff.
Pretty good looking stuff, man.
Yeah, no, I've been very impressed with this, and of course they'll have a little content, a little about the artists and everything, and the authors, the various writers who are working on it, and be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, just so you know, when you put my information on there, I'm Tom Church, 7'9".
Yeah,
gorgeous man.
60 feet tall, and he's made of fire.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Anyway, of course, we also been talking about planning out our Gencon this year.
Yeah, this is our third one, and first one I think we were a little overwhelmed with everything.
Yeah.
Second one, Ross did more. By the third one, I'm now getting into the swing of it.
There we go. Tom is signing up. I'm running 6 games, of course. You can look on the Gencon registration site, and I'm under Arc Dreams. I'm running 2 games of Delta Green, 3 games of Monsters, and a game of Wild Talents, which is a superhero game. And, yeah.
And, I'm actually going to try and get myself in on a few of those, so I can get a game with my man Ross here.
There we go. And Tom,
I've signed up for some other stuff.
Yeah,
too.
What have you signed up for?
I've signed up for a All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
Yeah.
Kind of a forget the actual name of it, but it's like it's like a 1980s kid in a high school detention.
Nice.
Kind of like the Breakfast Club with
zombies. I was that.
Yeah.
I would totally play in that if I wasn't.
I totally would.
Totally busy. So.
And I've signed up for a Star Wars game. Really, from what I've seen so far, the only Star Wars D20 game.
Okay.
That's going. I'm the only one that's signed up for it so far.
But this is May.
But I have people.
Yeah, you have people.
I have people. And I have also signed up for Mutants and Masterminds, so I'll have one of the rare pleasures of actually me getting to play it.
What mutants? There's quite a few going on, I believe.
It's Freedom Isn't Free.
Okay.
I remember that one.
You're not doing the G.I. Joe one?
No place is open for it.
Oh, too late.
I waited a few weeks, so therefore a lot of the good shit's
Yeah, I
gone.
told you that.
You totally did.
I told you.
You totally did, and I totally didn't listen to you.
Yeah.
And so what happens when I don't listen to you? My life is ruined.
Pretty much.
If I listen to your advice, I will live long and prosper.
Just so you know, some of the friends and players of RPPR, Jason, who plays Cassius in the New World Primer, and his friend Linton, and of course Aaron. And has Aaron signed up for anything?
I'm actually going to force him to this week. Otherwise, he hasn't even bought his badge yet.
Ooh.
And
well, that's not that.
Well, no, he said he would do that back in March.
Ooh. Well,
he has this habit of putting things off.
Jason and Linda, I talked to them. They've signed up for a bunch of events,
Yep.
a bunch of games. So I forgot exactly what they said they're going to email me. So what? Of course, why does this matter to you? Well, you, the listener, will get a blow-by-blow description of all these awesome games. Tom's going to be hopefully going to be recording.
Oh, I am going to. Well, I have the equipment. I bought my own recorder.
Yeah, the Zoom H2.
Oh, Zoom H2, awesome machine.
It is.
And if hopefully I will get word back from them if it's alright if we do that.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. So of course,
and I'll be running some games of my own unofficially, just with people.
Yeah.
So
that's true. If you wanted to play with the RPPR crew and you don't want to sign up for the tickets, get on the forums. Get on our forums at slangdesign.com/forums and try and post a thread, and we'll schedule some stuff together when we all have free time, and so you can be running the game under time.
I'll have a lot more free time than Ross will.
Yeah. I also did talk to Mr. Scott Glancy, who is, of course, doing the Call of Cthulhu playtest.
Which we've done every year.
He said he'll have some open seats for some of our friends as well, so we'll have some of the RPPR crew playing and dying and going crazy. And
in World War I.
World War I. Either.
Which, and if, going crazy, and if World War I, if it wasn't enough to get you crazy, throw in some Cthulhu mythos.
And speaking of that, our anecdote this week is from Mr. Scott Glancy himself, a anecdote from friends of his about the Walker in the Waste campaigns, one of the classic era campaigns of Call of Cthulhu, where you go Ithaca, the Windwalker.
Yes,
and it's called the Chaplin Incident.
Yes, and I laughed out loud. I lolled when I read it, literally. In fact, my mother, who was in the other room, was like, "What's going on?" Like, just laughing.
So,
and also, I think we mentioned, but hopefully my friend Andy, that I've gone on and on about, will be joining us too.
Yes, and that's your letter this week, correct?
Well, my letters, I'm going to read an excerpt from something he wrote. Not the whole thing, but, talking about some of his favorite games and favorite moments.
Okay, cool. All right. So when we get to the main topic, the use of maps,
the meat,
yes, the meat of the sandwich that is RPPR. That's a really bad metaphor.
It's all right, dude. It's Sunday. It's late. We understand.
I've been playing D&D actually. I've been
playing the hell out of it.
I know. I've been playing a rogue stabbing thing, so it talks like Tony Soprano. But anyways, enough about that. We are talking about maps, miniatures, props, and handouts, and these are staples of tabletop gaming. And
some games more than others.
Yeah, and we've all had quite a bit of experience with them. I think we'll get a little theory out of the way, and I think the main theory that I'm going to state is that all of these little gimmicks, these little extras to the game, will help the game as long as they don't detract or distract from the core of the gaming, which means if you're running a game or playing in a game and you're spending more effort and time and focus on the handouts, the maps, the minis, and all that other junk, then it's hurting your game. But otherwise, it will help your game.
Yeah.
And so basically, my advice is to try and put some effort into doing this. Now, of course, the biggest example, the bulk, I think, of this category would be maps and miniatures, and that
particularly with D&D,
fourth and third ed, combat, and when It sort of built on the ground up from this square by square thing, 1 inch square maps with miniatures, moving them around, figuring out area of effects, and it makes very tactical combat where you have to manage resources, and it's
watch where you step. And,
I think it makes the combat. I think combat would suck without it. I think especially. Fourth ed is built so you can't do it. But even in third ed, you could do it without it. It just would suck.
Well, I think they help avoid the this happens kind of thing. Which even at 29 years old, I still get that shit.
Yeah, you really do. Like when you're running tactical combat, you really need to have a concrete understanding of the spatial relationships. But that's a really fancy way of saying you need to know where everything is and how much distance is between it and all that junk. So
accent slip there, we're sorry.
But really, I think the thing is, my personal preferences, I think, are very utilitarian and pragmatic, which is to say, I am not one of... I tried to paint miniatures for a while.
I remember that. You went over to one person's house, one person's apartment, yeah.
And I realized I would never get very good at it. And even if I did get very good at it, it would just be far too... I would never want to use them. Dry brushing, which is where you get only a few flecks of paint on a brush and just brush it on there ever so gently for highlights. I mean, I just saw that. It's like, no, I'm
sorry. I can't see myself trying to paint eyebrows onto an Imperial Marine figure from Warhammer. I can't do it.
Well, Imperial Marines wear helmets, Tom.
Well, Lottie freaking da, Ross.
It's not a Necron skull. So, anyway,
I'm glad.
So basically, my personal habits are I use whatever minis I have handy, which are mostly I have this box full of third ed miniatures from the war game, and I just grab whatever's vaguely appropriate.
Yeah. For us players, we normally try to dig through and find things that look like us.
Yeah,
but really after that, it doesn't. As long as it's kept clear, as long as there's not too many enemies.
Yeah.
That we have to wait. What is this? What is that one?
Yeah.
As long as you can do that, and usually what they call the combats you've run, there's 4 to 5 monsters max, and we're pretty sure what each one is.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is you don't want to get too wrapped up in this stuff. I mean, in the miniatures, like I said, and with the maps though, like what I do, my favorite trick now is I used to have the battle maps, those reusable markers and things like that. And
and as we progressed, you draw it out.
Yeah, and that doesn't work. I don't like using the markers. I know a lot of people do, but I don't like using the markers because they get scuffed up. You use the wrong type of markers, and they're permanently on the battle map, and blah 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 blah. So what I do now is you go to Staples or Office Depot and you can get a big sheet of like 2 by 3 feet of a square 1 inch square pieces of paper, and you just pull one sheet off. Like I got 30 sheets for like $30, and you pull one off, you put it on the table, and it has a little sticky. It's like a giant sticky note with 1 inch grid on it, and that's what I've been using for the last couple months now. And even if you use one a week, that's 30 sheets. That's like 30 weeks worth. And I use more than I've used these for multiple weeks. And you can just draw on it with pencils
and use both sides.
Yeah, well, no, this one you can't. But
you can get on both sides.
Yeah, you can get them on both sides, and I found it works really well. So the main thing, I think, my personal thing is to do something that's cheap and effective. So you get the miniatures because they're made out of plastic. They look pretty good. And you can get stuff that vaguely looks like what it's supposed to. You use the paper with a 1 inch grid on it because it's cheap and you can draw on it directly. You can even draw area of effects and all that other junk. And, or you can erase it. So that's sort of my guidelines.
Right.
Now, you've run...
I've run a 3.5 D&D game with miniatures and maps and tactical combat one time for my group. I like to say my group does not like tactical combat.
Yeah, unlike my group.
Yeah, unlike the group we do here.
Right.
No, when the only fight that they really believe they should have any trouble doing is a boss fight.
Right.
Which is why when when we ran the Age of Masks game, I so loved it. No, mooks can actually kill you if the dice are unkind.
Oh yeah, Aaron's character. Yeah, Aaron's character, of course, playing a masked Avenger type, and the mooks had guns and knives and used
guns
them
and
pretty
knives
well.
hurt.
Yeah,
but no, I did it.
Especially if you roll poorly.
Yeah, and the thing is, I did it, and they liked it.
Yeah,
and it kept a lot of the. I'm not saying I have a lot of the no, that doesn't happen kind of thing.
Well, it'll happen.
But it virtually eliminates it.
Right.
As long as you know that as long as you know the system and know that. Hey, wait! You're wearing full plate armor. How did you move 8 squares?
Exactly, and in a single round.
Yeah. So I did. They liked it. Mm-hmm. They talked about it. The problem is they just. I think while they liked that particular session, I think it would take some training to get them into doing that regularly, especially with non-D&D games.
Yeah.
Like Mutants and Masterminds is what I run with them all the time, and I really think for some fights it would be really good. But also, his table is always cluttered. It's there's just nowhere to lay out a big sheet of paper.
Yeah, that is a practical consideration. You do need space and the maps and the minis and all that.
Right.
So
I think I like them. I do, but I like them really only when combat comes.
Right.
I hate the stereotypical dungeon crawl where you start on one space of a map, and it's slowly drawn out. I don't like that shit. It's just it's monotonous. It's boring, and I think some combat's good, but it feels like a 4-hour combat session, which really drains me.
And not every player feels that way. A lot of them really like it.
And a lot of players do.
And if you do that, then more power.
Well, I think to make that effective, you have to know that one of the core rules: know your group, know what they like.
One thing I know we've tried some other things. For example, I got these dungeon bendy walls, which they're little. Each one is 1 inch long, and they're just a little generic stone wall, and you can clip them together. And now I kind of use them when I need to, but it wasn't as effective as I wanted because they fall over. So gimmicky stuff like the 3D terrain and stuff like that, I wouldn't really recommend unless you just really got the cash to burn, because it's even if you get all that stuff, that's like $20 or $50 for something that's only going to be used in a 1 hour fight.
Yeah, and especially when
or a 2 hour fight.
Why would you want to spend that when, if you want to signify that you're at a higher elevation, just put your miniature on a die in the map. That's what we do.
Well, I think if you really want to have specialized terrain for a fight, like a big boss fight or something like that, if you're a arts and crafts kind of person, there's a lot of 3D paper cutouts you can get. Not like origami, but like if you go to rpg.now, they have terrain that you can print out and then fold up and glue together.
I've been in games with card foam terrain.
There's a lot of arts and crafts ways to do this stuff.
But if you're not into arts and crafts and just don't want to deal with it, you don't have to.
Like, I've got some wargame terrain that I've used over and over again. Like, that same fence and that same hill has been used quite a few times.
In different worlds.
Yeah.
It travels.
It does.
It's like the Doctor Who of landscape.
Oh,
yeah. I said that.
So the dungeon bending walls, I wouldn't really... And the gimmicky stuff, I wouldn't really recommend, because it's just... You're spending too much money for something with too little benefit. I mean, you have to think of the cost-benefit ratio. I mean, you get a book for like $50, but you can use that
and
book.
It might look pretty, but at the end, it's about...
Well, you're only going to... It's only going to be appropriate for so many fights. I mean, like, maybe 1 or 2 fights or something like that. Or one... I mean, unless you're going to have everything around it. If you have this awesome altar with blood stains and demonic sigils on it. It's like, well, either they're going to be fighting the whole campaign around that same altar, or...
And trust me, your players will start to get tired of that. Oh, good, we get to fight next to the big, giant, bloody altar again. Aren't we in a Fey glade?
Yeah.
Yes, but the altar is still there. Thank you.
It's another altar. Your whole campaign's going around to these altars.
It's a series of altars.
It's The other thing, though, if you want something for a lot more bang for your buck, you should get some mapping software and try that out. There's some free stuff, Dungeon Craft. Now, I recently bought Dungenie, which is available from Dungenie software, and it's a tile-based software where you use a stamp tool or things like that, and you can just stamp things out on a hex or on a square map and then print it out. And you've seen some of the maps I've done.
We used it last game,
yeah, and for me, like, the learning curve is very simple because it's basically a very, very simple version of Photoshop with kind of limited layers. Like, there's a floor layer, a wall layer, and then you can move things around and erase them. If you're at all familiar with Photoshop, you can pick this up in like an hour. And then the main thing is you don't open the software and then start making a map. You have to have an idea of what kind of map you want first. I mean, and that's kind of like you pull up Word and you're like, what am I going to write? Yeah,
you don't want the words to wander around your mind like lambs.
Yeah. So if you have a plan, if you know what type of map you want, then Dungenie would be really cool. The only weak points are, and there's 2. One, tech support sucks on it. Like, I've tried, like, I couldn't download it from their website from my home computer. I actually had to go to another computer, at a different house it was at the college lab, computer lab, to download it, because there was some bug where you couldn't download it if there was a certain firewall, and I couldn't disable the firewall because it was at my ISP and not so it was. Right. And then I emailed them the day it happened, and they never got back to me, so I just had to wind up downloading it from somewhere.
I did
else.
that with a flight sim I bought.
Yeah,
I emailed them twice. And it's been 8 months so far.
So that sucks. And 2, it's $40, and it ships with a very limited number of tiles. Like, I had to sort of make, even with just doing a generic dungeon, I had to make, it doesn't have many objects in it. And there's user packs of art you can download for free and things like that. But still, it's just it's if you can make your own art, especially if you or if you look at the user art they have on their website, then that would be very good. But otherwise, it's just I don't know. Well, I like it because the interface is very simple. And there's some other programs like Campaign Cartographer, which is based on CAD, computer-aided design, which is fucking ridiculously complex unless you're familiar with CAD. And then there's Fractal Mapper, which I haven't tried out yet. So, but it's I would say Dungeon is a decent. So.
Good thing to get started with.
Yeah, I mean, try their demo out. I mean, right. You see if that works for you. So that's a good way of getting a lot of bang for your buck if you for your mapping needs.
Try the demo, unless you got a lot of cash to burn, in which case you could donate some.
Yeah, we're
shameless with our hands out all the time.
Exactly. So. You know, and you don't need a map for every game, and you don't need even a battle map for every game. I think really all you really need is a...
particularly it's when combat shows up.
Well, as long as you have a concrete spatial understanding of where everything is in relation.
I would say, but even if you do, your players might not.
Yeah. So basically, at the very least, all you need is a couple pieces of scratch paper that you can say, all right, you're here, he's here, this is how long, you know?
Yeah, that's the type I have to use.
Yeah.
Because ironically, my players also want to know everything about the room. Like, okay, it's mainly, what can we use in this room for a makeshift weapon?
Yeah.
Is there the wet bar? Is there lots of hard liquor we can use?
There's you might want to get Dungini because then you could print out 8x10 maps of these rooms and things like that, and then if you get the modern map art pack, you could probably fill all that in.
Yeah, I'd mention a game that my friend Andy has started, but my friend Jake and Aaron have also taken to doing their own, are Fight Night maps they have. Yeah. Which are just, maps of just various locations, bars, restaurants, concert halls, kind of things like that. They pre-made that they can, just print a copy out and have a fight night in it.
Okay. What is the Fight Night?
It's using Andy's system. The DX system.
Is it player versus player fighting?
No, it can be if you want to, but mostly it's themed. There's like generic, there's mooks, meta mooks, and like elites.
Okay,
I'm missing one.
Okay, so it's just fighting.
But they also they have different themes. So they have like an '80s cartoon version where the simple mooks might be Smurfs.
Well, I was just asking what they did. So they fight.
They fight.
Okay.
And
question answered.
Yeah.
All right. One thing, though, before we go on to the other, miniatures. I think just in general, just get whatever's, like I said earlier, just get whatever's handy. I would definitely not recommend, unless you're a really hardcore Warhammer person or whatever, don't use the elaborate hand-painted pewter, miniatures that you've lovingly painted, because they're going to get a lot of wear and tear on the gaming table, and somebody knocks it over or somebody positions it wrong. Cheeto-covered fingers.
Spills a Dr. Pepper all over the map.
Exactly. So go to your gaming store, pick up the cheap, crappy ones. You can get, $5 for $1 or whatever. Get the discontinued minis games. Like there's one for sci-fi called AT-43 that is bargain bin, fire sale clearance levels. Go on eBay. Just pick up crap loads of vaguely appropriate minis for very cheap prices, or cardboard counters. Although,
now, if you're a player, you're going to want to shop around for several hours just trying to find the perfect miniature that matches your character.
Yeah.
Which I know because that's what I've done before.
Yeah. And, the great thing about miniatures, though, is that you can they're three-dimensional, so you can try three-dimensional things on them. Like, a person on our forums discussed how he, for a D&D game, put all the players' miniatures in a plastic container and put it on the map and said, oh, well, that's the room you're in and that's the size, so we'll do that so the dice don't hit the minis or whatever. And then later on, the trap starts. He started pouring water in the container. It's like, that's how high it is for your character. It's like, oh, but I'm playing a halfling. Well,
you suck.
Hope you can swim pretty well. And so the players were like, oh my god, it becomes more real, it becomes more suspenseful, more thrilling, to like, oh shit, I'm gonna drown around unless my little plastic guy gets out of there. So
you become attached to those little plastic guys.
Exactly. So think of things like that. Like someday I want to run an Iron Man sort of like combat thing where everyone uses cheap miniatures, and then like whenever the character dies in that, you destroy the miniature. So just like on the 4th of July, that's what I want to do. It's like,
oh, you die. Well, we're going to take a brief 2-minute break to attach some M80s to this son of a bitch, and just bam. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, combat can continue now.
Exactly. So that's just how
we live in the city limits. That might be a problem.
Well, we can go outside of the city limits, Tom.
Where would we go outside the city limits, Ross?
I don't know.
Well, you're going to have to think of that, aren't you?
That's in July. We'll figure that out. So let's talk a little more about the other gimmicks of tabletop gaming.
Handouts.
Handouts. The paper. When we mean handouts, we mean the paper ones.
Yeah. This is like everything from news clippings, photos.
Yeah. Messages, maps.
Text, documents.
Yeah. So I tend to use them in published scenarios. Like Call of Cthulhu has so many.
They're very good with those.
There's one of the reasons why I've run so many. I've almost never run an improvised or home written Call of Cthulhu scenario because there's so many good ones out there that are already published. So I just grab them, print them out, or print the handouts out and hand it out to the players. I mean,
yeah.
So that's what I do. What about you?
Well, normally I tend to make my own. Like, remember the Call of Cthulhu game I ran? I try to make up some, official, Nazi Germany military order documents, that look like they came from an inkjet printer. It's very hard to make them truly authentic. But I handed those out. And what I like about those is, especially for orders, you can print different characters, different orders. Mm. And I think it's a lot of fun when you do that, and the players don't know.
Yeah, like there's a very effective scenario for very great scenario called Machine Tractor Station 37.
We talked about this one before.
I've run it twice, both with similar results. Not quite the same though. And for that, what I did is I printed out the character sheets, and each character has a set of secret orders. And what I did is I took some cheap manila folders and stapled the character sheets to the folder. So when you open it up, you could see both your character sheet and your orders, and nobody else could see them because of the manila folder. Yeah. And that was very effective in getting that the players involved in the game.
Yeah.
So
I do think if you're going to use handouts, the more realistic you can make them, the more effective they are.
Well, what do you think is the sort of the cut line between cost benefit ratio in terms of like how much time do you
like I did for mine when I had the Nazi documents, I actually looked really hard to find the graphic for the not just the swastika, but the official the Nazi Germany imperial image put on all the documents. That actually was kind of harder than I thought. I'm just do stuff like that, and don't just make it some words on a sheet. Add an image or something. Or if you're going to do a newspaper article, actually make it put it in a format of a newspaper. Mm-hmm. Which is a lot of programs make that easy to do.
Yeah, actually, like in Call of Cthulhu, there's websites where you can generate telegrams and things like that. So I could see that, but like, how much is too far? I mean,
I don't think I've ever actually. I've had some people who have tried to. When they get like older documents, have tried to artificially age them.
Yeah,
like tea stains, burning off, setting fire to some of the edges, which is okay, but it's really not necessary.
Okay,
unless it's like unless it's integral.
So for you, it's the matching the document that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's a lot easier if it's like emails or things like that. But
right.
you can do it for documents, and of course. Don't make them too big. Don't have like a full mission briefing, debriefing kind of thing.
Right.
Because, if you hand those out, players aren't going to want to read them all.
That's true. Well, sometimes they do, and that I remember running Delta Green at night on Owl's Head Mountain, which is in our actual plays, one of our first ones we did.
Yeah, I was in that one.
And there were times when everybody was reading all the different handouts, so like nobody talked for like 3 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
So I had to tell the people who were listening, like, just for you listeners at home, we're the players are reading all the handouts. So
I will try to entertain you.
Yeah, something like that. And
but yeah, there's a limit, to good length and excessive length.
Yeah.
Don't print out a novella worth of crap.
Yeah, that's true.
And it can be helpful, print out, if it's something that everyone needs to see, just print out enough copies so they don't have to keep trading the same one around.
I think the thing is, you have to keep in mind players are like very much, I wouldn't say ADD, but they are trying to game. They're not going to have their analytical, critical thinking. I mean, some may, but it's not going to be as critical as if they were like, taking a test that would determine their, potential for the rest of their life. They're going to read that a little more carefully. So maybe the rule of thumb is to use the executive summary version. Like, the president does not read every fucking thing that comes across his table.
Because nothing would get
desk.
done.
Yeah. So they do these one-page executive summaries.
Points.
Yeah, bullet points. So what you do is you write a document that has the bullet points or the executive summary of something, and that's what you use. I mean, that's like... honestly, I don't think I've really done many. Like, I've done handouts, but they've been more for the flavor. Like,
right.
Like you've created a lot of handouts, right? Or
yeah, I've created a lot of handouts for like the Gargoyles game. I did a lot of those for that.
Okay. Well, I mean, what purpose did you use them in the game?
Well, I've always kind of think it's better to show than to tell. Hence.
Okay. Yeah.
So I mean, if it's just if they're going to someone to get some information, then they can just speak it. That's fine. But say, like, they actually take the time to go to the library, the museum, and find these old documents. I find, it's a lot more effective than, rather than just tell them what they find and what it says, okay, here's what you find.
Okay.
I think, if they can actually look at something real, that they found, it works a lot better. And that way, say that then they have to go tell another player what they found, instead of trying to, it's like, well, either two things, either actually verbatim tell them everything.
Right.
Or do what more often happens. All right, I tell them everything that's happened.
Okay.
Just do. It's well easier like, here, I found this.
Well, I mean, for the handouts in the game, do they all serve the service of advancing the plot?
Advancing the plot and information. Sometimes I just do it because I think it's cool.
Okay, well, like, what do you mean by it?
Well... One time, you've used photos a lot more than I have.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I was getting at, but yeah.
But one time, they were following this guy that there was this investigative reporter that was for my Gargoyles game that was investigating, supernatural activity in New York City, and there was rumor that he had some photos that were, threatening, they were threatening, to expose the supernatural community in there. So. I got a lot of photo, kind of I did scenes from movies.
Mm-hmm.
I did actual just photos. I did a little bit of good art from DeviantArt.
Right.
And printed out like 8 photographs of like supernatural monster looking stuff.
Okay.
Which was a lot more effective, and they liked that, and especially when I put I actually scrawled some handwritten notes like he had written.
Right.
Which to them they liked a lot more because they could see what the problem was. Like, oh man, we can't let these get out.
Okay. So it was more of a so yeah, that's, I guess, handouts can serve two functions, which is one, advancing the plot, like here's the summary of the research that you did, which is their common thing, and then there's sort of adding to the flavor, to the theme, the atmosphere of the game,
and especially if atmosphere is really important.
Yeah. Like for me, what I've done a lot of that, and for example, I was running Night Floors, which we've recorded, but I just haven't posted yet. Night Floors is a Delta Green Call of Cthulhu scenario where the players go investigate a missing painter in a apartment building in New York, in Manhattan, and very weird, bad things happen, and
especially at night, which I recall we only went there at night.
Yeah, it's Night Floors for a reason, and. The thing is, a lot of the scenario describes, like, the painter's apartment, for example, is covered in random things. She's just glued in all these things on her floor, the walls, the ceiling, the floors, and it just describes them in very vague terms. So I found this one website called Project Facade. It was talking about World War II era plastic reconstructive surgery, and very primitive reconstructive surgery. So it's actually the results are pretty kind of gruesome. I mean, and then just a lot of old photographs in general. I found this one thread on something awful called old images that creep creep you out, creep you the fuck out, and or something like that. And there's like, it's a goldmine of really creepy images. And I was like, oh, well, fuck, I'll just use this. So I just grabbed about a dozen.
Particularly old black and white ones.
Yeah, old black and white. And that's just the
For some reason, color-corrected digital photos just don't do it as well.
There are exceptions. I could find correct.
Well, yeah, there are some.
But I had a black and white printer, so I did with what I wasn't going to print.
And it looks a lot better, I think.
So I grabbed a lot of those, and here's some of the things you find. And then I grabbed like the text of a schizophrenic woman and things like that. Something she'd written.
And it may not have anything to do with the story whatsoever.
Right.
But if you're running a horror game and it's creepy, it puts your players in the right frame of mind.
And I think it could work in other genres too. I mean, like like if you do a fantasy thing, maybe like a ballad or something like that written down, or
if it's
artwork,
or like
a tapestry.
Or in an action game, it could be a bunch of military reports and
there you go. And they don't necessarily advance the plot, but they kind of give you the flavor. Like you're sneaking into an illegal Colombian drug factory, and you find these reports that talk about how the subjects in this drug factory, the subjects of the test subjects were all killed by it. Continue the tests,
or the number of young women that have gone missing, and then like another report that says there's an increase in the number of drug addicted prostitutes showing.
There we go. So
anyway. I think it can work for pretty much most genres.
Yeah. You just have to think. So, but they all come in these, I think, two flavors: either advancing the plot in some way or advancing the flavor. Yeah, and
both of which I think are important.
I mean, you could have a thing that does both, but I think primarily you can do one or the other. I mean, so. But of course, then there's the three-dimensional handout, the prop, and this is where it sort of gets a little weird,
a little esoteric.
Yeah. In general, it's sort of uncommon because you're sort of going from tabletop to LARP, and the dreaded L word,
Well, I think we all do some LARPing at some point in a game, we don't even consciously feel it happening. But especially with my group, I know one of their favorite things is interacting with NPCs,
right,
and conversations. And one time I actually used a 3D prop.
Yeah,
they were meeting with the head of a mystically inclined crime organization.
Okay,
and they finally got it. They had to actually do a whole session of just arranging an audience with this guy.
Yeah.
Kind of a really Asian kind of Fu Manchu kind of thing, and I was actually kind of doing a pretty effective, not so much Asian voice, but creepy
bad guy voice,
mastermind voice.
Okay,
and it went on for nearly 45 minutes.
Okay,
and it was just negotiation, trying to one up the other, a lot of indirect prick waving,
right,
pissing contest,
right,
and I was waiting. I waited until I've kind of felt the right time that everyone was like really into character at that point. Mm-hmm. And I had an airsoft pistol.
Okay.
And I just slammed it in the center of the table as the head of the crime organization.
Right.
And it's one of those things that the things that can immediately just draw everyone's attention right to that.
Yeah.
And a gun is a great way to do that.
Okay.
So that's what I did, and there was silence for about 30 seconds.
Nice. Now, of course, we aren't recommending that you go out and wave guns at players' faces. No. Tom, you just put it on the table.
I put it. I kind of mostly slammed it on the table.
Right.
Which is enough to just I didn't quite do the Christopher Walken King of New York 9mm pointer thing.
Yeah, right. But we here at RPPR advocate gun safety. And,
yes,
please don't start waving guns
unless it makes your game better.
Tom, we're gonna get that lawsuit.
Don't do it to intimidate your players.
Don't point a gun at anyone's head or face or any part of their
body. Or
don't
point a gun at anything you don't intend to kill.
Exactly. So unless you really have to kill that player.
Unless it's a Dragon Ball Z game. And
so, and this also goes for other weapons. But anyway, so that's a really good handout. Prop. Yeah, props I don't have as many experiences with.
Neither do I. They're pretty rare, actually.
Yeah.
I remember one kind of ineffective one I remember.
Yeah.
Was a game our friend Chris was running.
Yeah.
You were in it for one session, I believe. But
yeah.
There was one where we had to meet with this guy who might have been the reincarnation of an ancient hero. Mm-hmm. And he would only talk with one of us but he would only converse with us if if they both wore these theatrical masks,
Right.
which Chris brought.
Yeah.
And he required us. He put one on and insisted whoever did the talking had to put it on too.
Yeah.
And it was a little
Yeah.
a
little
off-putting,
unnerving.
unnerving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Ed finally valiantly decided to be the one to do that.
Yeah.
And this is one of those, like, it just rubbed me the wrong way the whole time. Just, I couldn't do that.
Yeah. That's true. And I understand what he was doing, but, maybe for a horror game, because that would help maybe. Mm-hmm. But it with the sort of props, you have to be very careful about what you're going to do with them. I mean, they have a greater chance, I think, of being disruptive or distracting from the game, which I think Chris's did. People were thinking more about the prop than they were about the game. We're thinking about how it did. Now, I think it could be helpful. For example, I've always wanted to run a survival game, like you're all lost in the wilderness, and actually hand out like food, like actual rations or something like that at the beginning of the game, and ban all other food and water at the table. And for the rest of the game, the only thing you can eat is those rations. And those,
if you want to regain hit points,
you have to eat the rations. So,
and when you run out, you run out.
Yeah. So,
or you can ask the players around you for more if you run out.
Yeah, exactly. So it becomes sharing because you actually have to trade them in as players. Some sort of resource like that. I think maybe like you do the Lord of the Flies conch shell. Where whoever only the one who holds the conch shell can talk. That could be effective.
Okay, actually, one time I remember a mask was effective.
Yeah,
it was a vampire game.
Yeah.
And I played this guy maybe 3 times before he moved away.
Yeah.
But when we were meeting the Nosferatu Primogen.
Yeah. And
he got like a dirty looking hockey mask.
Yeah.
Put on saying, the Primogen will only meet you.
Yeah.
Wearing this. and he did a really good kind of gravely creepy voice for the Nosferatu, and the mask and all of the attention was drawn to it.
Nice.
So in that case, it was actually working.
Nice.
I think, if you're going to use masks, they can work. But for God's sakes, don't wear a Darth Vader helmet if you're running a Star Wars game.
That's true.
It's never happened to me, but I know it could.
Yeah, I'm
Seriously,
sure it has.
You're not scary as him.
I think, again, sometimes perhaps props for mystery games, because mystery games, I think, are more conducive to handouts anyways. Like, for example, like a sound recorder. Like, if you had a tape recorder and you actually recorded, like, a voicemail of a murder victim or something like that with a vital clue in that could be really
like
cool.
the thing I wrote, but we never recorded.
Yeah.
We were going to do the thing, it was the confession of a killer.
Oh, yeah.
I wrote it, but we just never did it.
Yeah, we just never got around to it.
We could still do that.
We still could. So maybe that could be a future Ransom project. So we'll see. But I know I've and also with other props like an hourglass for a time limit in a fantasy.
You could do like a stopwatch or an egg timer, but I think an hourglass.
It's more dramatic. Certainly, it's more dramatic. Another prop, because it was paper, but it was Patrick did a bloodstained map for a Iron Heroes game. It was very good.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of time, I remember one time we used.
Yeah.
We ran a game on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
And we actually had the whole game was something bad was going to happen at the stroke of midnight.
Oh.
So we actually turned on the coverage of the ball dropping.
That's very cool. Yeah, like a video. Yeah.
So and it was the live broadcast of the ball dropping in Times Square.
Nice.
And we said, you have to find the bomb that's going to go off before it actually strikes.
That's actually a good idea. I hadn't thought of that earlier. A video as a prop. I mean, a video of something event. Now, that's obviously a lot of work to do it. But, for example, if you're running a certain type of game, you could get video of certain things very easily. For example, if you were doing a GURPS atomic horror game, archive.org has a lot of public domain footage of nuclear tests, 1950s educational video or instructional films.
The turtle ducking and covering.
Yeah, duck and cover. Things like that. And then if you're a video editor, very ambitious, you could mix them up, add some distortion to it, some grain to make it even freakier. That could video.
I think there's also sound. Now, I'm not talking music,
right?
But like when you use the number station,
and the Fear Itself,
in the Fear Itself game, those things. I could just listen to those like, son of a bitch. This is
I also did it in a Delta Green game. I don't know. I don't think you were here for this one. It was called Growers. I think it was called Convergence. It was, anyways. It was a recording of a UFO sort of thing. It was a very weird. I have it on my cell phone actually, and it's a very kind of weird. I'll put it on the the podcast. So
Okay.
I'll insert here, and
But I remember there's a few times. One GM I remember had a. We were trapped in a basement of some old abandoned factory,
yeah,
and we didn't know that he actually had some. He actually hadn't hidden a few speakers in his apartment, and had a looped sound of just water dripping.
nice.
And we had no idea that this was coming from anything. And it's one of those, he was playing it just soft enough that we're pretty sure we hear it, but we're not entirely sure. And actually, the thing was, he would actually just like increase the volume by like one notch every 30 minutes. And that actually got really good. And apparently the icing on it was he also had, then he had sound of water. He looped a sound of water dripping with the sound of something large and heavy starting at a distance and coming closer.
Nice.
And he looped them together, and we're like, what the fuck? And finally, it was only at the end of the game, he's like, oh, by the way, and holds up it was an iPod Shuffle he had it on. We're like,
nice.
Oh, you son of a bitch.
Nice. I really dig that. So again, yeah, if you have some small portable device to play sound effects like a cell phone, an iPod, something like that, and you can just cue it up and hit it instantly. I mean, again, don't have it be distracting or detracting from the game.
Yeah,
So,
don't do it like a radio DJ with a whole board of sound effects you can play at any
again, that's taken away from the game, I think. But just,
if you have like a door creaking,
right,
they can just hit a button and have that play.
Yeah, since I got the cell phone with a little memory card, I should do that more. Mm-hmm. So anyway, other things. You can also, other good sources for props, handouts, public domain art, like if you're doing a horror game. German woodcuts of the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse are always freaky. There, again, archive.org.
Just old woodcuts in general.
Yeah.
Really.
That's true, old art. Any other, and again, Project Facade, World War I photos. Look on popular forums for creepy image threads. Something Awful always has one going on, and it's always good.
If you actually, if you have the cash, or you have, like you get like a commission from DeviantArt or something, or have a friend that's good at art, you can get some custom stuff too.
That's true. I mean, if you're willing to spend a little dough for your game, that I think it's a little better than doing like the altar for your terrain.
Although if you actually have an artist in your group, you can kiss his ass a little bit to get some. Don't do some actual bribery in game because players will see that, but see if see if you can get them to do some stuff for you. Yeah.
And the only last thing I can think of is sort of the ultimate extension would be a costume. Now, I think
I personally have never experienced this.
Right, and I can't. I don't remember any time where I did either, but I have a horrible memory. But I've heard of other games that use it.
Okay, well, actually, I guess that the mask could be considered part of that.
Yeah. Well, I was thinking, like, in some situations it could be really fun. Like, if you were doing a military game and you dressed up in a military uniform, like you're going through boot camp or something like that, so you grab some army fatigues or whatever. That could be really fun. Or, you're doing a zombie survival game and, like, somebody dresses up as a sheriff or a SWAT guy or something like that.
Yeah.
Or a Western game where everybody has to wear a cowboy hat or a sombrero or something like that. I mean, something simple like that could really help out with it. So it's kind of a gimmick, but I think it's worth a try.
Well, actually, one thing I remember, there was someone doing I think it was GURPS. It was like, kind of suburban horror kind of thing. I just read about this, but a guy that was playing an athlete actually did some of the black makeup, the sunblock under his eyes. Yeah. As a football player. Yeah. And kept in character as a football player, kind of mixing retarded jock with Arlie or me from
Yeah.
His Full Metal Jacket.
Nice. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different things you can do. But I think it would be worth trying out sometime. I'd like to hear from the if you have had a great experience in costuming with props, handouts, or whatever. Post on our forums or email us or leave a comment here in the this entry.
Or if you had a disaster with those, we'll hear from that. We like to hear those too.
Yeah, we definitely enjoy hearing about the disasters. So anyway, I think that sort of sums up what we have to say about that. I think coming up next we'll have Tom with his...
I'll be reading some stuff from my friend Andy.
Yes, and then of course we have some favorite forum threads, and then of course shout-outs and the anecdote, the Chaplin Incident. So,
good stuff. Stay tuned, seriously.
It's been a long time, and we have many things to do, and you are not sure what you are doing. Stop now. Stop now.
Well, this part is actually not written, so I'm just talking and introducing that Andy had written something. It was called, I believe it was, it's called Tonight I Passed on a Game. And he's going into a lot of, not being able to do the games he wanted to do and missing what we used to do. I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read an excerpt of this, of what he says are his favorite games, the things that really made him appreciate it. So, I start reading now. But I can't say it's the remaking of yourself on the sheet that defines my addiction. It's certainly the strongest dose I can get, but it's not the only flavor I like. I've had games that I can point to in the past, games where I was a character unlike myself. A character that grew in different ways, and by changing the way they did, changed me. Citation, I give you Underworld. The movie was crap, we knew this, somehow, and we called it feeble, so what did we do? We hacked together a gang of freaks, geeks, and losers to make it right. We ran an Underworld game. Starring me and Tom and Aaron mostly, but the supporting cast actually billed Ed the Head in the prologue, and took on a couple of cameos by Crow and a guy named Bro, who we don't talk about anymore. I was playing Blank, the Malkavian. Unbeknownst to the other players, I was actually Malkav himself. His core derangement was that effective recreation of his identity through amnesia that wiped his mind clean every few hundred years. The game was supposed to be only 1% World of Darkness, the rest was supposed to be our re-envisioning of the Underworld movie. It worked marvelously. Who knew that the only real problems with Underworld was the lack of explosions and betrayal? It was straightforward. Have two outcasts find out the war between Lycans and Vamps was in fact perpetrated by the machinations of a human conspiracy. And all of a sudden you've got a brew for my liking. Big moment. Vlad's betrayal. Straightforward and obvious, and I never saw it coming. Afterworld. Not the sequel you might assume it is. Afterworld was a chance to finally break new ground with my old allies. We were testing my system, so it wasn't a White Wolf hack. And we were setting the story in a completely original world, so it wasn't a patch for crummy cinema. It was the future. It was a world of heavy metal, 80s new wave, Cockney accents, and dinosaurs. We blew up so many bridges in that game it's not even silly anymore. It's just plain awesome. A campaign where the characters started out matching action with overdue rent, and ended with daily consequences for being the first line of defense against the end of the world. By the beginning of the first year, we had to deal with buying ammo. By the end of my time in the homelands, we were considering ways to thwart extra-dimensional beings. This is where New Cub became a staple in any Tommy gun tale. And to this day, his team up with us has made each new story that much better. Big moment. New Cub popping a two-wheeled side wheelie in a sports car to dodge a missile. A missile that wasn't there until Tom decided a two-wheeled side wheelie deserves a missile flying underneath it. Alterscape. I didn't run it all the time. I ran a hell of a lot of it, but I didn't run it all the time. I got a lot of memory-making, life-enriching gaming in with Crow at the helm, and a lot of really, really awesome time with Tommy the Gun playing Ringleader. I punched Elder Vampires, I've kicked Iteration X in the face, I've even mouthed off to Sith Lords while unarmed, but I've never had as much fun as I have in the Alterscape. The premise is simple. You play yourself going to that world called Imagination. Your destination is a slowly growing patch of light off to one corner of the realm. It's designed to be a game world by the players of the game, for the players of the game. Alterscape can't be published, it's not a book. It can't be traded, it can only be shown to you. You have to be invited, and then you have to invite someone else. Big moments. Telling me and New Cub that he's going to be a dad, while afloat at a Duluan airship over the mountains of Grakagor. In all the moments that make me smile, I see violence as a way of doing what is right to the opposition of good. I see impossible odds unfold in completely amazing Deus Ex Machina ways that turns the tables on despair and puts the victory in hope's hands. I've seen friends fight each other as much as they fight for each other. At the end, they all come out different. And I've seen places that would take your breath away, leave you gasping. With imagination, I've seen the edge of waters that lap the shores of a void along the horizon of an Epica island. I've seen the great worms that writhe in a cleansing act through humanity's filth on the moon core of Petrus. I've seen the bright, hot sun roll through the stained glass of a mighty trek keep, wanderers the wastes of Ruderia. I've even led an army of werewolves in a battle to stop the rebirth of an ancient evil awakened by an old nemesis. I guess if I had to guess, I thirst for that again. I thirst for it the way it was given to me by Drake, Trouble, Crow, New Cub, and Tommy the Gun. I want to see the vivid depths of what you would call home if you could move into the floating castle that hovers at the innermost of your daydreams. I want to find out what you'd think up if you had to paint a face on the monster that frightened you most, or the demon that never left you alone. I want to see where you would go if you could go anywhere. But most of all, I just want to go on big adventures.
Well, that just brought a tear to my eye, Tom.
Yeah, not my usual, butt fuckery that I tend to talk about when I write a letter.
Yeah.
But it's pretty good stuff from Andy that I felt should be shared. And
I was being sarcastic.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, technically I didn't have his permission to do that, but he put it up on a public website, so.
Okay, well, fair enough. That means anyone can use it.
That's right.
That's not how copyright works.
I don't know how copyright works, Ross.
Well, it doesn't work like that.
I just know they put a little C with a circle around it when something's copyrighted.
Yes, technically everything is copyrighted as soon as it's written, at least in American copyright law.
I see.
Yeah.
Well, I just thought I'd share a little,
If we get sued, Tom, it's your fault.
I thought I'd share a little drama.
All right, fair enough. But anyway, we have a couple of our favorite forum threads. First off, I would like to mention the Mega Shark versus Octopus. This is a thread talking about a trailer of this new movie, which is a classic, soon to be a classic, starring Lorenzo Lamas and Deborah Gibson.
Lorenzo Lamas.
And it's about a mega shark being tricked into fighting a mega octopus. And
is this anything like Boa versus Python?
It's even better, Tom.
How can that be possible?
The shark can jump out of the water and eat a helicopter, Tom.
Well, whoop-de-doo. I've seen two giant snakes fighting.
Well, this
with a line actually said, "The only way we can defeat this snake is with a bigger snake."
Or, a nuclear weapon. But that's not as dramatic. So.
Or just a simple airstrike.
Yeah. So, Tom, what's one of your favorite threads?
Well, I like the one that's simply called Riffs, Motherfuckers.
Riffs, Motherfuckers, yes?
That's no, Motherfuckers.
Motherfuckers.
There's a difference.
I'm sorry.
Enunciate.
Enunciate. Yes, I should enunciate. So, what about it, Tom?
It's just...
You like riffs, don't you? Admit it.
I love the idea, and it actually pains me to have that cool an idea stuck with a system as shitty as that.
I was actually playing 4th Ed D&D today at Metagames Unlimited, and the table next over to us, they were playing Riffs.
No shit.
Yes.
Yeah, there was actually a Riffs game I was at Gencon I was thinking of signing up for, just to relive it.
Yeah, well, you might want to do that.
Or I could run one. Son of a bitch. Running a system I hate, but a setting I love.
There you go.
But really, it's just the name of the thread alone is enough to get me interested and happy.
Right.
It was just... And I haven't even responded to it, because what can I say that I haven't already?
There you go. Fair enough. One thread I really like is games you would run if you had the players for it.
Good question.
This is a larger thread. It's talking about all the games you like to run, but your players either won't put up with it, or you just, you don't
trust them.
Or you don't trust them, or just for whatever reason you can't run it. A lot of discussion about various RPGs, a lot of obscure ones, a lot of indie games. There's a lot of interesting stuff in it, so I would check that out. Tom, I think you had one more. The lessons learned at RPPR.
Yeah, lessons learned at RPPR.
Yeah, so
it's kind of it's just listen to our actual plays, and and then insert a funny line of things you might have learned using one of our little bullshit things, like things you've learned about how to properly anal rape somebody with a pistol.
Yes, well, that's horrible, Tom. You're a horrible, horrible person.
I'd like to think I've improved a little.
Yeah, I guess since you feel bad for it or something. I don't know.
Well, this was the dark ages. This was the dark ages of my late teens, early 20s, man. Come on.
Okay, fine. So.
But I still look back fondly at them. Oh, did I just shoot down any credit I might have started to get? That
there
might be
you
sympathy?
go. You pretty much.
So
but,
I'm stuck as an asshole now.
Yep. Pretty much.
All right. That's the way it is.
So why don't we talk about, of course, our shout-outs. The things that we think you should look at. Or,
both of mine are DVD box sets.
All right, what's the first one?
The first one is the Henry Rollins Show Season 1.
Season 1. Okay.
I have recently picked this up, and I will first of all, anyone who has listened even badly to this show knows I love Henry Rollins.
Yes.
We even went to go see him live in St. Louis.
Yes.
And his show is really good. Pretty cool interviews. But what I especially like are his letters from Henry, which inspired my letters from Tom.
True.
And his teeing off.
Yeah.
Which is he talks about something in the world that is pissing him off.
Oh.
And he covers everything from the FCC to the Bush administration, because this was during the Bush administration.
Yeah.
But it's Henry Rollins giving his own little spin on it that makes it so much better.
Okay.
And I got to admit, when he interviews his hero, one of his rock heroes of Iggy Pop, it's a good interview.
Okay. Now, one of the things, the first thing I'd like to mention is a bag I just picked up. This is, you can't see it because you're listening, but this is the M51 Engineers bag, which I picked up from ArmyNavyDeals.com, and it is an awesome shoulder bag, something you can carry over your shoulder, kind of a messenger bag configuration, but it's got all kinds of pockets and patches and pouches and
armor plating.
You can carry your books in. It's got a little. See this plastic clear thing, Tom? This is for a map.
I see a plastic clear thing. You people at home, it is a clear plastic.
You see,
thing.
You can stick. It's under the hood of it, and you can stick a map in it. So
you can stick a map in it.
That's what he did. See, that's what I'm going to be carrying at Gencon. I'll put the map of it in there, and when I need to figure something out, I'll whip this out. I'm like, oh, that's where I need to go. But the main thing is on the back side, you got these two things here. And
Velcro!
I know, right? I'm putting in sound effects. You get the zipper here, and then look at this shit. You got all these little pouches. Look, I bought a tube of dice, so I can stick that in there. I can get more tubes of dice. One full of D10s for White Wolf or One Roll Engine. One 3D6s for GURPS, and then little pouches here. I mean, this is just ridiculous.
Holy jumping fucking Jesus! Look at this.
It cost me $24 at Army Navy.
$24? That can't be right.
I know,
$24 for this genius thing.
Yeah, and the zipper broke off, so maybe it's not quite as good as
Oh my god.
Look at that.
Oh my god.
Wow, I'm talking about how great this bag is, and the zipper fucking breaks.
That's awesome.
Oh, well. It's still an awesome bag, and it's actually for something I'm not going to use, but...
you will get laid carrying that around with you.
I mean, yeah.
There are going to be some gamer groupies banging you at Gen Con.
Look at this thing. Look at this, Tom. Here, you take a look at it.
Can I touch it?
Yes, you can.
I'm touching it.
I know.
Oh my god.
It's pretty awesome.
I'm losing weight.
Look, there's side pouches, too.
Side pouches. Mother of God.
The other one you could fit a water bottle in, because it's got a little...
Oh my god.
I know, right?
This is quite possibly the best moment of my life.
Really?
No, but I'm pretending. Here, I'm going to hand it back to you. I don't think I can take the awesomeness.
Oh. Well, anyway.
That is a hell of a bag.
It's an M51 Engineers bag, and I would recommend picking one up, because it's pretty awesome. So,
do it. Pick one up.
What was your other...
Oh, yes. I was distracted by the awesomeness of the bag.
Yeah.
No, my other box set is the complete series of Blackadder.
Yeah.
Seasons 1 through 4.
Yeah.
And I must say, I've always been a huge Monty Python fan. Someone actually recommended, dude, have you ever heard of Blackadder? Which I did not. Said, you have to check it out. It's really funny. It's comparable to Monty Python. While I don't consider it that, it's different. It's a different kind of humor.
Yeah.
Still British, but different.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. How far have you gone to season 4 yet? Is that the World War One?
Yeah, that's Blackadder Goes Forth.
Yeah. I'll have to borrow that from you. I've
I've
seen a few episodes of it, but I haven't watched all of it.
Yeah, it's season 1 is the weakest.
Yeah.
But seasons 2, 3, and 4 are just comic gold.
Awesome.
But I have to say, I've heard that the ending to the fourth season is actually.
Have you finished it yet?
Well, there's scenes all over YouTube.
Okay.
They said, dude, at least you got to check out the last scene of the last season.
Right.
And it's them, it's all the main characters going over the top, out of the trenches, and it just slows down, showing them running, and then it kind of just stops and shows.
Oh, wait, you're spoiling it for everyone.
It's just a really poignant ending to a comedy series.
Right.
I'm like, holy crap, that's pretty good.
Awesome. Well, I'll have to borrow that from you whenever you're done with it. So, anyways, I had a couple more. I'm just going to mention these real quick. First, 2 movies, The Burrowers and Splinter. Both are
I
horror
did watch
movies.
The Burrowers.
Oh, really?
Yes, I did.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I did. Those things work. The Burrowers.
Yeah.
It was kind of a nihilistic movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very dark horror movie. It's one of the where the monsters are horrific, but the people are horrific too. Mm-hmm. And not just the cavalry. I mean, the cavalry is obviously, but the Indians are pretty fucking brutal too. So it's set in the Wild West, Nebraska, or 1879, or North Dakota, I think, 1879. Settling family, half of them are dead, half of them are missing. They presume Indians, so a search party goes out. Search party finds the Burrowers instead, and bad things happen. So
they don't kill nicely.
Yeah, no. Yeah, but don't spoil it.
I'm not saying anything about that.
Good. Next horror movie is Splinter, which is I could have sworn I talked about this before, but I haven't given it a shout out yet. It's a great little horror movie about 4 people stuck in a gas station with a monster outside. Siege movie scenario, but it's good acting, good script, great monster. It's like a zombie kind of thing, like John Carpenter's Thing, where it has these spikes growing at you and you get stuck. You don't want to get stuck by the splinters.
I must watch this movie.
Yeah, it's fucking great. So, and then finally, I would like to mention Level Up Magazine, Goodman Games' new 4th Ed D&D magazine. It's issue 1's come out. It's only $2 an issue. Mm-hmm. Lots of great stuff for players and GMs. New monsters. First issue has dinosaurs in it. Tom,
Mother of God.
Yeah, you want to pick that up, don't you?
You got it.
Yeah.
I'll just look at yours.
It's $2, Tom. You should go and buy a copy.
Why would I do that when I could look at yours for free?
Because I'm not going to let you borrow it.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
No.
Yeah.
You could get a dinosaur mount.
You're going to let me look at it.
Yeah, but you can't borrow it. So
fine, I'll look at it.
Yeah, you'll borrow it or you'll buy copies. But anyway, you'll it's a good little if you're interested in 4E D&D, you should check it out. Lots of neat stuff: adventures, encounters, monsters, players, feats.
Oh. And this isn't a shout out. I just want to say that I watched yesterday the riff tracks for Twilight.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I don't think I could have sat through that movie without it.
Is it? But it's worth it with the.
Oh my God! Yes.
Yeah.
That's some of their best stuff.
It is. It really is. So finally, of course,
I'll just say, line.
Line. Kibbles and bits. If you watch the riff tracks of Twilight, you'll know. We actually have been quoting it at the 4th Ed game I've been playing at because the GM and one of the other players has seen it too. So
yeah. Of course, for our group, it's simply we're just quoting the "like a boss."
Like a boss. Incredibad from the album Incredibad from The Lonely Island. Of course, those guys who are on SNL and they did Dick in a Box.
When you get to our latest,
they have a new one out called Mother Lover. Which is,
but
that's an SNL digital short. It's not on Incredibad. So.
Okay,
but it's kind of funny too.
Yeah. So when you get to our current episode we just did, you'll hear it.
Yes. All right. Anyway, so finally, I guess we're down to the anecdote.
And what an anecdote it is.
Yes. All right, this is from Mr. Adam Scott Glancy, publisher of Pagan Press, who did Delta Green and the Call of Cthulhu, Dig to Victory. So This is not him, but this is what he's sent us as he's become a fan. So, anyways, apparently while Pagan Publishing artist/cultist Blair Reynolds was running the campaign Walker in the Wastes for his friends up in Fairbank, Alaska, two players became convinced through no fault of the keeper that the Charlie Chaplin was a cultist of Ithaca. Ithaca, of course, is sort of the giant Yeti, great old one.
The Wendigo.
The Wendigo, there we go. Mm-hmm. Anyways, this chain of irrationality, I like that phrase, that led to this conclusion is almost too painful to recount, yet I will nonetheless attempt to reconstruct the player logic behind this atrocity.
Thank you.
Yes. The players had just returned from the first expedition in Walker in the Wastes and were in New York City at a reception thrown at the museum, or by the Museum of Natural History. A member of the party had delivered a paper on the Inuit of northern Canada, but the entire party had attended the reception. Two of the players were approached at the reception by real-life historical figure Marion Davies, the longtime mistress of Charlie Chaplin, and previously the mistress of William Randolph Hearst. She got around.
Yes, she did.
In real life, Davies has an interest in all things archaeological and anthropological, so she begins asking them questions about their expedition. The keeper, Blair, had thrown her into the mix to add a little historical flavor.
Oh, yeah. Flavor.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But two of the players were not fooled. They knew Blair, knew his messy divorce, and his resultant opinion that anyone not having a Y chromosome was a two-faced, unscrupulous whore, and that they knew he would never introduce a female into the situation unless she was a bloodthirsty cultist who had planned to lop off their wedding tackle and use their severed members for toothbrushes.
All women are chaotic, evil thieves.
Exactly, thank you. They realize that they must follow her before the opportunity slips away. So when she leaves the reception, they hail a cab and utter the immortal phrase, "Follow that car." They tail her to a 5-star Manhattan hotel and slink away into the lobby to see where she is going. Once they determine what floor she is on, what room she's in, they decide to climb up the fire escape in the alley to look in her windows. Now it should be noted that all this hotel ninja action is being performed while one player is dressed in a tuxedo with a tails and a top hat, and the other player is dressed in his dress blue military uniform complete with a chest full of medals and a peaked cap. They are not blending in, and they are peeping toms watching Marion Davis get undressed, shower, change her clothes. At no point does she do anything cultist related or even remotely suspect. Then she places a call, packs her bag, reads a book until she gets a call back and goes downstairs. The two players watch everything she does with rapt attention, trying to make out the title of the book, overhear the phone call, and now it's raining. They're soaked to the skin from hanging out on the fire escape. They change downstairs and see her limo pulling away, flag down a cab, throw a suspicious amount of money at the driver, and bellow, "Follow that car!" All right, and this is only page 1 of 3, by the way. She goes to Union Station. They follow her into a train for Boston. Soaking wet, they have to buy tickets from the conductor because they failed to do so before boarding. Another "follow that car!" and another suspiciously large tip brings them to the ferry to Nantucket Island. Idyllic getaway to the rich and well-bred. They buy tickets and shadow Miss Davis all the way to Nantucket. At no time does she does anything odd or super suspicious, and the keeper, Blair, takes great pains to describe how not suspicious she is. In fact, everything that happens he has to pull out of his ass because none of this was planned for before these two Nimrods derailed the scenario. What's worse is the amount of detail that Blair's providing is taking as proof that they are on the right track. So you think the poor GM can't win for losing. All right. After all, there's no way Blair could have had this much detail ready if it wasn't part of the adventure, right? Player logic. Yeah. All right. Meanwhile, the 4 other players have to sit by themselves in the other room waiting for Frick and Frack to rejoin the party. Oh, did I not mention that despite the entire party being at the same reception, Tweedledum and Tweedledummer never bothered to tell the other players what they were doing? No, of course they didn't tell anyone else what they were doing. They just ran off. Some of the other players were nervous about what kind of trouble the Wonder Twins were going to get themselves into and wanted to go out and try and find them before they slapped their rings together and took the form of catastrophe, shape of massacre. The most experienced player knew that it was far too late since the prodigal players have a 3 or 4 hour head start in Manhattan, and the rest of the group has no idea where to start looking. They figure the only thing they can do is get some sleep and check the skyline for columns of smoke in the morning. They have the right idea. Yeah. At Nantucket, a limo is waiting for Miss Davis. With no taxis to hail, the players do the natural thing and immediately steal a car. They follow her to a beachfront hotel or beachfront house, where a number of expensive cars are parked. They park out of sight and belly crawl to the house. Yes, they're still wearing the damn tuxedo and military dress uniform. They observe a pool party going on with a gramophone playing music and people dancing and drinking and flirting. Miss Davis emerges having changed into a swimming costume. On her arms is the world famous silent film star Charlie Chaplin. The next words out of the player's mouth are, "Oh my God, Charlie Chaplin's a cultist!" Unbelievably, Blair, the keeper, kept a straight face and simply asked, "What do you do now?" Finding that they have their sidearms and a few dozen rounds between the two of them, they refuse to fall back. Tell the rest of the party where they have found it. Bring up reinforcements and more firepower. After all, if they retrograde the cultist and get away, they'll lose this once-in-a-lifetime chance to decapitate the cult's leadership and save the world! Alright. Instead, these two cretins decide that they must immediately attack this group of cultists. An astonishing decision insofar as that there are at least 40 cultists, in quotation marks, and they only have 2 handguns between them. Realizing that they need an edge, they go back to their car and grab an empty can of petrol from the boot. They siphon gas out of their tank, fill the can after fumbling a roll and getting gasoline all over one of them, and return to the house. When the pool party moves inside at sunset, the 2 players creep up to the house and begin pouring gasoline all over it. Not satisfied with the area covered by 1 can, they sneak around front and go from one limo to the other, siphoning more and more gas out. They even prep the limos with wads of gasoline-soaked rags in the open gas cans. Where do these rags come from? Good question. They tear the arms off the shirts to make them, but they put their jackets back on to cover their torn shirts because they don't want to look suspicious. Inevitably, they set the house and the limos on fire, and as the screaming party guests run out of the inferno, the players empty their guns into them. They end up shooting over a dozen people, some fatally. After firing a couple of magazines worth of bullets into men and women armed only with bathing suits, they scurry back into their stolen car and drive screaming back to the ferry docks to make good their escape, only to discover that the ferry doesn't leave until the next morning. Rather than looking for a fishing shack or private boat to take them back, or fishing smack, these 2 inconspicuous men smelt of burnt cordite and gasoline covered in mud from belly crawling around Charlie Chaplin's beach house, offered the captain of a ferry $1,000 bribe to leave immediately. He does so, and when our 2 heroes arrive at the main train station of Boston, they repeat the process, bribing a conductor to have them trained to New York at least half an hour early because, well, clearly time is of the essence. After all, they've been gone in game time for nearly 36 hours. When the 2 geniuses arrive back at the party's hotel, they burst into the room still wearing the remnants of their former fine dress, covered in mud, stinking of gasoline, and talking a mile a minute to recount their brilliant discovery that Charlie Chaplin was a cultist and the heroic and cunning plan they used to neutralize the Chaplin threat. The other players were horrified. Eventually, they convinced the Genius Brothers that Charlie Chaplin was not a cultist and that they had made a colossal mistake. But when the other players tried to explain how their entire world would be hunting them down, the 2 geniuses just shrugged their shoulders and said, "What's the big deal? He's just an actor, right?"
Ugh.
Once the other players explained to these fucktards that they had attacked the most popular man on the planet and that their cunning escape had all the subtlety of a cinder block thrown through the front window of a Fifth Avenue jewelry store in broad daylight by a naked man wearing a live badger strapped to his head, they realized that their only option was to turn themselves in and roll up new characters. When I ran into the guy from Fairbanks Alaska at Gencon last year, I asked him if he knew Blair Reynolds or the guys they used to game with, since there was only one game store in Fairbanks, and I was not too surprised to find out that he did know them, although he had never gamed with them. When he knew them, they were in college and he was in middle school. But when I asked him if he knew the Charlie Chaplin story, he smiled and says, "Oh yeah, every gamer in Fairbanks knows that story." So, and now you do too.
Fair listeners, you know.
You know, if there's a woman who asks you about what you're doing, she's obviously an evil cultist trying to kill you.
Especially if she's a historical figure.
Oh my god. Just so many incredible leaps of logic. It's astounding. And, I'm speechless, Tom. What else can you say to that
You
story?
can't. There's nothing you can add.
There's nothing. So,
that's the Grail.
it's transcendent.
My mind is blown.
It is. So, I think we'll leave with that. So,
Fairly like dream about fires and swimming pools.
and Charlie Chaplin, the cultist. So, until next time, this is Ross Payton here.
I'm with Tom Church.
And,
Sleep well. And dream of wondrous cults.